Albus Dumbledore on the Fountain of Fair Fortune. The Fountain of Fair Fortune is a perennial favorite, so much so that it was the subject of a sole attempt to introduce a Christmas pantomime to Hogwarts festive celebrations. Non-British Muggles may be unfamiliar with the British tradition of plays presented at Christmas time, usually based on fairy tales and including music, comical characters, and audience participation, though not generally, of the vigorous type described here, JKR. Our then herbology master, Professor Beery, eventually left Hogwarts to teach at WADA, Wizarding Academy of Dramatic Arts, where he once confessed to me he maintained a strong aversion to mounting performances of this particular story, believing it to be unlucky. An enthusiastic devotee of amateur dramatics proposed an adaptation of this well-beloved children's tale as a Yuletide treat for staff and students. I was then a young transfiguration teacher, and Herbert assigned me to special effects, which included providing a fully functioning Fountain of Fair Fortune and a miniature grassy hill, up which our three heroines and hero would appear to march, while it sank slowly into the stage and out of sight. I think I may say without vanity that both my fountain and my hill performed the parts allotted to them with simple goodwill. Alas, that the same could not be said of the rest of the cast, ignoring for a moment the antics of the gigantic worm provided by our Magical Creatures teacher, Professor Sylvanus Kettleburn. The human element proved disastrous to the show. Professor Beery, in his role of director, had been dangerously oblivious to the emotional entanglements seething under his very nose. Little did he know that the students playing Amata and Sir Luckless had been boyfriend and girlfriend until 1 hour before the curtain rose, at which point Sir Luckless transferred his affections to Asha. Suffice it to say that our seekers after Fair Fortune never made it to the top of the hill. The curtain had barely risen when Professor Kettleburn's worm, now revealed to be an Ashwinder. See Fantastic Beasts and where to find them for a definite description of this curious beast. It ought never to be voluntarily introduced into a wood-paneled room, nor have an engorgement charm placed upon it. With an engorgement charm upon it, exploded in a shower of hot sparks and dust, filling the great hall with smoke and fragments of scenery, while the enormous fiery eggs it had laid at the foot of my hill ignited the floorboards. Amata and Asha turned upon each other, dueling so fiercely that Professor Beery was caught in the crossfire, and the staff had to evacuate the hall, as the inferno now raging on stage threatened to engulf the place. The night's entertainment concluded with the packed hospital wing. It was several months before the great hall lost its pungent aroma of wood smoke, and even longer before Professor Beery's head reassumed its normal proportions and Professor Kettleburn was taken off probation. Professor Kettleburn survived no fewer than 62 periods of probation during his employment as Magical Creatures teacher. His relations with my predecessor at Hogwarts, Professor Dippet, were always strained, Professor Dippet considering him to be somewhat reckless. By the time I became headmaster, however, Professor Kettleburn had mellowed considerably, although there were always those who took the cynical view that with only 1.5 of his original limbs remaining to him, he was forced to take life at a quieter place. Headmaster Armando Dibbit imposed a blanket ban on future pantomimes, a proud non-theatrical tradition that Hogwarts continues to this day. Our dramatic fiasco notwithstanding, the Fountain of Fair Fortune is probably the most popular of Beedle's tales, although, just like The Wizard and the Hopping Pot, it is its detractors. More than one parent has demanded the removal of this particular tale from the Hogwarts library, including, by coincidence, a descendant of Brutus Malfoy and one-time member of the Hogwarts Board of Governors, Mr. Lucius Malfoy. Mr. Malfoy submitted his demand for a ban of the story in writing. Any work of fiction or non-fiction that depicts interbreeding between wizards and muggles should be banned from the bookshelves of Hogwarts. I do not wish my son to be influenced into sullying the purity of his bloodline by reading stories that promote wizard-muggle marriage. My refusal to remove the book from the library was backed by a majority of the Board of Governors. I wrote back to Mr. Malfoy explaining my decision. So-called pure-blood families maintain their alleged purity by disowning, banishing, or lying about muggles or muggle-borns on their family trees. They then attempt to foist their hypocrisy upon the rest of us by asking us to ban works dealing with the truth they deny. There is not a witch or wizard in existence whose blood is not mingled with that of muggles, and I should therefore consider it both illogical and immoral to remove works dealing with the subject from our student store of knowledge. My response prompted several further letters from Mr. Malfoy, but as they consisted mainly of opprobrious remarks on my sanity, parentage, and hygiene, the relevance of this commentary is remote. This exchange marked the beginning of Mr. Malfoy's long campaign to have me removed from my post as headmaster of Hogwarts, and of mine to have him removed from his position as Lord Voldemort's favorite Death Eater.